Welcome to the Sunflower Conversations, where we explore the hidden disability sunflower and its role in supporting people with hidden disabilities.
Welcome to the Sunflower Conversations. I am your host and my name is Chantal. Joining me is Lydia Best, who is the president of the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People. Welcome, Lydia.
Thank you very much for allowing me to join you today and to have a nice conversation. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope as well that everybody listening and watching will actually benefit and enjoy the conversation we have.
Perfect. So hearing loss, being hard of hearing and being deaf can occur for many different reasons. So in our chat, we'll explore the barriers that can arise and ways to make sure that communication is effective and, importantly, inclusive. So I'm going to give a visual description of myself first, and then Lydia will do the same. So I'm a woman, I have brown skin, I have got brown curly hair, I've got bright red lipstick on, I'm wearing glasses, and I have a black top with white stripes on. I'm wearing a white Proud to Support Sunflower lanyard to demonstrate that I am an ally, and I'm sitting in front of white shutters and there's a green plant hanging over my shoulder. So Lydia, if you could do the same.
Yes, absolutely. I am a blonde woman, white. I believe I am middle-aged. I think that's appropriate way to call myself. My hair is short. I'm wearing a green shirt and also a lanyard from Sunflower. The users use the green one with lovely sunflowers all around. And behind me is a background which reads EFHOH, which is the short for European Federation of Hard of Hearing People, in the blue color. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's begin. Can you tell me, is there a difference between hearing loss, hard of hearing, and deafness? And if there is, what is it?
On one hand, you could say there isn't, because the communication is a clue that everybody, doesn't matter if you are having hearing loss or if you are being hard of hearing or being deaf, but it's very different. Usually it's depending on how you function. So someone who has a hearing loss will say, I have a hearing loss. I do personally have a hearing loss because I've lost something. Unlike for someone who is in the deaf community, for example, and they will say, I haven't lost anything. I was born that way and I am perfectly happy. And that is also a valid opinion. Both opinions are valid. And I always come from the kind of believing and also the stance that no one should be denying somebody's experience. So we cannot deny that somebody can be happy and is happy, and we know they are happy. Being a person who is deaf and using sign language, they are perfectly capable. And in the same way, it's the person who experience hearing loss. They're also capable of lots of things, but they do experience barriers because they've lost something. And sometimes I think it's actually even harder because you really are coming from a place where you have been hearing very well, you've been doing very well, and suddenly due to illness, accident, disaster, could be anything, suddenly you lost your hearing, maybe partially, maybe fully. And that is a really scary place to be when it happens, when it occurs, because you really don't know where to go, where to ask for support, what to do. It is scary.
And that's what happened to you, Lydia. You said that you describe yourself as a person with hearing loss. What was your experience?
Well, my experience was as a child, as a teenager, I had a viral infection, which nobody realized at the time, but actually affected my ear. So by the time I actually came back to school from summer break, my teachers have realized that I'm not really reacting in the way I should be reacting in the classroom. And for my parents, it was more difficult to notice it because I was masking it. I was lip reading. I was excellent lip reader. So I was masking it a lot. And, when children mucking about, running around, parent doesn't have.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Did you say, did it go gradually or was it a complete?
It was a gradual, but it wasn't total hearing loss at the time. So with my wonderful skill of masking everything with lip reading, I still do that. So it's quite challenging for some people to realize. And then suddenly, kind of quite rapidly losing a bit of hearing. So it was the teacher who's noticed that she was getting annoyed. She was seeing that I'm not really reacting. And she has sent me basically to our duty nurse, because in Poland, where I am originally from, we always had the nurse in the school, and she did the simplest possible test anybody can do, any parents can do if they have some concerns or worries. She just covered with my ear with one hand, standing behind me, and saying something to see what the reaction will be. And then she's done with the second one. And I still remember at the time, will never forget, she was shocked and she said to the teacher, she's actually quite deaf. At first, I was sent to the hospital to stop that infection, to stop the progress of hearing loss, and then I was fitted with hearing aids. And you know what? As children do, they manage much. We are much harder, tougher than our parents sometimes think. But then, when I was quite happily going on for more than 30 years with no change to my hearing, just kind of stable, just changing hearing aids and things like that. And then, unfortunately, a part of what was part of my hearing loss as well, a Meniere disease, has kind of flared up. I am very, very lucky to have so-called episodal Meniere, which means it happens once some time. But there are some people who have it constantly. So for now, it's quite well managed. But there was a time.
Comes with terrible vertigo, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really,
And
really
it comes
difficult to
with
live
a
with.
spin. The spin. Yeah. And what it does, the fluid from the ear organ, which is responsible for the balance, can spill into the ear where the cochlea is. And that's where the damage can occur. So it was during my time in Poland previously, I had that as well, but it was managed very quickly, treated as an emergency, and the fluid was quickly drained. However, unfortunately, about 15 years ago, it came back with vengeance and took away all of my hearing over the 3 months period time. And it was actually much harder than the first time around when I was a teenager, because this time I was really hoping to hold on to it, and it was just going, and we couldn't stop it. And at the same time, being someone who is hard of hearing, who spent many years as a happily young person, being with other hard of hearing people in hard of hearing community of young people, going on summer camps, being prepared, you would think, for such a thing, I wasn't. I really, really wasn't, still in my prime, still working age, and suddenly I cannot hear, I cannot really participate in the parents' conferences and things like that, because I suddenly cannot hear. And that impacted my children. It wasn't just impact on me, it was impact of my children as well.
Having something and it not being there for you anymore is
It in one of the conversations I had, because I went through some kind of semi-counseling with a program coordinator at the Cochlear Implant Clinic in London, who's been wonderful in kind of discussions we had. She was actually very helpful to help me to understand the feelings and what was going on around me. And she was just saying, well, for your children, somehow you have died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because bad communication was severed.
Yes.
Suddenly they had to write notes to me. They had to try harder so I could lip read them.
Yeah,
So it was a change for everyone. So
everybody,
you can
everyone's.
imagine when I had my cochlear implant finally fitted and I came back from the clinic, the first thing my younger son did went onto the behind me, just sitting on the sofa, standing on the sofa and calling me out. And when I turned around, because I just heard the noise, not really fully understanding, he was just jumping for joy.
Oh,
She's back.
she's back. Mummy's back. And these we're going to come on to the technology, but just for anybody who doesn't know what a cochlear implant is, could you just describe it?
With hearing aids is you can have every 5 years replaced, changed depending on your programs and technology and colors you want or the make. With cochlear implants, you cannot do that. Once you choose your cochlear implant, it is a surgical operation. It's a surgical procedure where just one manufacturer, the one you are staying for life now, is supplying the device, which is going under the skin in electrode inside the ear to replace what is lost. The electrical currents which are ongoing inside the ear if we hear well and the sound is going through the cochlea and then sending electrical currents to the brain to process the whole sound, what it hears, from us, from the world. Inside the ear, there are like hairs. Those hairs are damaged when you lose completely your hearing. So because those hairs don't exist, they cannot carry that current to the brain. The
Right.
cochlea electrode itself, which is being winded inside the ear, is doing that job. Not in the same way it was possible and designed by the nature, but it's pretty close to it for many, many people.
That is a mind-blowing piece of technology. Did it take you a long time to get used to the sound that you were hearing? Because you obviously, when you were younger, you have memories of sound. So I've spoken to another gentleman on the podcast he was born with a hearing loss. Don't think he was completely deaf, but he had hearing aids from a small child. And then as an adult, he got a cochlear implant. And I think I don't know whether it took him longer to adjust to the sounds. I know that he talks about he really likes Star Wars movies, loves them, and his wife, as a gift, bought him like the box set with like the cinematic sound, and he said he just sat there and was totally, yeah, immersed in this sound that for a hearing person would be like, oh, this is pretty cool. But for him, it was like, 10,000 fold. What was your experience like?
Well, my experience is twofold. One is the music, another one is the language. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Polish born, so I learned English using hearing aids. The hearing aids did not go as high with the high frequencies as, for example, cochlear implants do. Cochlear implants are much more on the high frequency when people are sometimes saying they're missing the bass, the lower frequencies, which is correct, it's true. So I actually was pretty fast. I know I was pretty fast with learning because I think it was a week after switch on, when I actually had a conversation with my mom on the phone. Pretty okay. It was an effort, but it wasn't too bad. And on the first day I was switched on, I actually rang my mom, and while I only understood, hello, how are you? The rest was just blur. But the
Okay.
fact that I was able to hold the phone in my hand and actually hear the phone ringing on that other side was that kind of experience this gentleman explained to you. For me, that was already, wow, I can finally hear the phone ringing.
Yes.
So that was one. And then in Polish language, I have to say, it kicked in very quickly to be able to understand, because that's my native language. So it's my DNA, part of my DNA. But when it came to English language, there was a lot of difficulty, and it took a lot of rehabilitation, listening to sometimes podcasts, sometimes using the books, which are the reading books with recordings, to make sure that I can listen to the recording and read the book, and then finally take away the book and just listen to recording. It is a huge, massive change for a person, and you don't really know. You think you are prepared, but you are never prepared for cochlear implant. That's what it is.
Even just the operation itself, like you're going into your skull and to your brain, presumably approaching your brain. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
No, because they going through a small hole in the skull, but in general, it's the implant itself is just attached to the skull rather than, inside or wherever. But yeah, it is scary. I wanted to run away, basically, but the desire to hear again, to try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. Well, I'll have to think of something else. But the desire to hear and to just have that connection with the children was a little still higher and much bigger, much stronger.
Do you have to be completely deaf in one ear, or it has to be in both ears in order to have it?
It's now changed, but still majority of the cases the requirements is the qualification is both ears and the 90 decibels, 80 decibels of hearing loss. Well, in my case, there was nothing left, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But for my husband, there was something. He had about 80 decibels, so he needed to go through a more stringent qualification. There is single-sided deafness, and it's becoming more awareness now among the medical community as well as the politicians, to understand that single-sided deafness can be debilitating as well, and it's important that people are supported. For
Absolutely.
me, because I, as a young child, 12 years old, have adapted and then stopped wearing two hearing aids because the way the ears were so widely different. One was going really quite deaf, another one was still functioning well. But I actually relied on only one, on the one which was giving me more crispy sound and better understanding of what is happening to me. So in a way, I can't still imagine, even I'm not so sure how I would adapt myself to have suddenly two ears after so many years of only relying on one.
You are listening to the Sunflower Conversations with Chantal. To learn more about the sunflower, visit our website. Details are in the show notes. If we can just talk a little bit, like the emotion, I feel that this has been a really emotional journey for you. What was that like as a mum? How did you feel when your kids were like, did they stop talking to you in a sense because it was so much effort?
They did. We tried. There were too many arguments because sometimes I would misunderstand something, and it is a lot of effort, and I get it. I fully understand it. And at the same time, I felt like I was inadequate because in our family, in our marriage, I was the one hearing in a way, because I was hearing better than my husband. I was making 100% use of the hearing aids I had. And that even, my husband's family for many years weren't sure that I am really deaf person, because for them, looking at my husband, comparing, there was a big difference. That's why I'm always saying it's a huge spectrum. And it depends on the person as well. Everybody's different.
What do you, in your personal experience and through the work that you do at EFHOH and your other organisations, what are the common misconceptions about people who cannot hear?
Most of the time, misconception is number one, that if we are speaking very well, that we must be hearing. And that comes from the misconception when people meet majorly people who are deaf, who were born deaf, whose speech is not clear, and who use sign language, then that is the misconception. That is preconception in pretty everyone's mind, but this is what deafness is or hearing loss is. So if I present myself and I don't wear my cochlear implant and I say I'm completely deaf and I need you to help me or to, just give me, nudge because somebody's calling me out or anything like that, please be, aware of it. And yet I will not get the correct reaction. The person will be thinking I am just winding them up or whatever because I speak too well, or by some pure coincidence, I have reacted to something, what looks like they were calling me, and I reacted to them, when it could be something else getting my eye gaze on them. I did experience abuse regarding that myself. So, and it was actually that situation which spurred me in a way when I said to myself, if that cochlear implant would work for me, then that confidence I needed, because my confidence was right down to the bottom, I hope I can regain my confidence and then I will come back fighting. And that's what I am doing now for many years.
Good.
Just come back
Good.
fighting and saying, come on.
So you were being verbally abused because somebody perceived that you were lying,
Yeah.
that you weren't able to hear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. And what are the other misconceptions? We spoke before, and I think you mentioned about that people can sometimes think that you're not intelligent if you can't if your hearing is
Yeah. That's
not
one of the most common ones. It's not even that. It's because I actually was just recently visiting Poland, and a colleague of mine, which I met him only online before, was giving me an experience of working at the Association for the Deaf People, where there were two colleagues working with him. This person was hearing, and he was just minding his own business, getting on with his work in the office, and then he observed, listening in to a discussion between two hard of hearing colleagues. One was hard of hearing, another one was deafblind on top of that. And one was asking about what time the customer is supposed to come for the meeting, so they can support them. And the other one thought the question was about the family arriving.
right.
So basically they continued to talk to each other, misunderstanding each other responses and questions, until my colleague said, you know what, guys, you are both talking about completely two different things and you still are no wiser. I, even now, with my cochlear implant, I still find myself sometimes responding wrongly to some kind of call out on or something, my colleagues at work say. And we just have a laugh together when we realize but that is a great accommodating environment. But unfortunately, when I was in school, it did happen to me as well, when teacher was just basically saying that he's not going to be repeating himself all the time because I cannot be that stupid, for example, whatever.
Oh, goodness.
Well, I was old enough and my colleagues were old enough to stand behind me and just stand up from the seat and, excuse me, you forgot that she's got hearing loss, so you better accommodate her.
But not everybody has that, do they?
No. And I know that, and my heart always goes out to the people who tell me, and I do understand how that feels when you just sometimes are not sure even to say something, to intervene, because how you will be misjudged, how you will be seen. And yes, you will be seen as you must be stupid because you are answering a completely out of blue, completely different way.
As somebody who's been on the journey that you've been, and obviously all the work that you do, how important do you rate communication?
Oh, number one.
Mm.
And also, I came across many people in my community who, for example, I remember my colleague who was in the board from Netherlands. He was saying, because he was born with hearing loss like my husband, he had the same experience as my husband, where in his own country, he would be asked, where are you from? Because of the pronunciation is different since they were children. So the way they pronounce in their language, native language, is different. The way I pronounce in my language is of a perfectly hearing person. Because I spent 12 years without hearing loss, my first formative years, and that made a huge difference. So I don't get anybody asking me, where are you from?
Yes.
No Polish person will ask me that.
Yes.
But they would ask someone who was born with hearing loss, and then they would get that question.
Yes. And the impact of sort of I guess it's about your identity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're being misidentified, if that's the correct way to say it, that must have an effect on confidence.
It does. It's a huge, and that's why I rate communication #1, because communication is everything. From the communication with teachers, when you are a parent, to have the confidence to also to support your children. But also, I do remember in school, the teachers were, for example, asking that myself and my husband should be working more with our children on pronunciation, when you get those lessons, phonics and things like that. And I was kind of puzzled because I said to the teacher, how can I test my child or check up my child when I'm Polish? So my English is my second language. It's more difficult for me to do that. And then for my husband, even more, because he was born with hearing loss, so he doesn't always hear it. And that was one thing. But also, doctor's appointments is so important that the communication is very clear, so we understand the data and the diagnosis is made correctly. The misdiagnosis can happen if we misunderstand the questions, if they are not clearly, spoken to us or presented. But then to understand what is happening to us and what the instructions are, everything has to be in writing, everything, because otherwise the situations can happen as it happened to my husband when he misunderstood how long he should be taking his tablets for, that was blood clot. Well, that was the price to pay after traveling to Japan. And he developed the blood clot, and he didn't realize he actually stopped his tablets too early, and he collapsed. We managed to sort it out, but the problem was the communication was lost when he was at his appointment.
That can have devastating consequences, can't it?
We were lucky.
Yes. And then there'll be other incidences when you think about in like emergencies.
If I suddenly don't have my cochlear implant processor because it flew off
Yes.
in the accident, nobody will know, but I actually have it there. So I do know that I should be wearing maybe a bracelet or something to indicate that I wear cochlear implant, because if I am unconscious and the emergency services need to put me, for example, the doctors want me in A&E to go into MRI scan, then it's not something I should be having.
Oh, yes, of course, because that would be really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in terms of general things, if there's a fire, if there is any other kind of emergency where people are asked to evacuate, if it's coming over a tannoy and you can't hear that, or you're not interpreting the communication in the correct way.
Yes, and at home we can be responsible for that, and we can make sure that our home is safe for us, because thanks to the sensory services in the UK, we receive all the support from the social services to ensure that our homes can be secure, and fire service as well is coming to our homes and to make sure that we can have the alarms which are connected to our visual alerts. So that way we can be woken up when the danger is happening. But that is not something what is happening when we're traveling.
Yes.
And I did have a situation last year in Brussels, actually, in the hotel, which was a 5-star hotel, which housed on that day, at least by my count, 5 cochlear implant users. No, maybe more, because that was including me and my husband. So I think 6 or 7 cochlear implant users were staying in the hotel for a conference. And the fire broke out there.
Okay, right.
And there was no alarm that anybody could follow, because they were all taking off the devices just to relax, to going for the sleep. And alarm broke out very close to the hotel, which meant evacuation for the hotel was ordered as well. And when we arrived from very late night meal, as we always do, we have realized what has happened there. the hotel had absolutely no means and no systems in place to actually allow even anybody to provide the information. Look, I cannot hear anything at night, so you need to have a procedure for a person like me in case of emergency.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. Do you find that the community, the community, hard of hearing community and the deaf community in social situations, social events, is there an impact that you have been aware of that it makes it harder to attend events like that if everybody there is hearing? Is there a divide?
Oh, the divide is huge because despite the fact that nearly everyone benefits from captioning, live captioning in the conferences, because you miss out, somebody says something to you, whatever. So, you just, and sometimes it's too much listening effort in general, even for hearing people, sometimes they just go sleep nearly, right? So having that additional information, sensory input, which is the captioning, the visual one, or for deaf people, sign language as well, it does help a lot to make sure that we are in the know. You especially in the very important meetings, which I usually attend at United Nations level, I would not have a confidence to interject if it's needed, or to even to make a contribution or comment to some important discussions we are having, unless I have a full confidence that I understood that question well. And that means for me is captioning. I also use hearing loops or whatever is available in the room if it is. Usually it is hearing loops now is Auracast coming in, which is also providing broadcast, like streaming Bluetooth broadcast directly to our devices, which helps. It's like somebody holding a microphone and just speaking. I'm getting the direct, speech.
Okay, right. Yes.
So those help to do it. But with deaf people, if they don't have a devices or the devices are not as useful to them as, for example, for me in this case, then yes, it's even much harder without having the sign language interpreters.
Yeah.
There is this barrier. It's kind of, you don't feel you are invited.
And I've seen lots of music concerts with interpreters, sign language interpreters. And I actually went to an event myself. It was a Pride event, and they had various talks and panel shows, talks, what have you, and they had an interpreter there, which was fabulous. I don't know if that's going to be, have you seen that is happening more? Some of the ones I've seen from the music concerts, the interpreters are fantastic. They're so entertaining. They're really into the show, and they're not just interpreting it from a static position. They're performing at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yes, I have, and it's great and it's wonderful, but it's not useful for majority of the people who don't know sign language.
Yeah.
And recently I have seen on LinkedIn some few advocates are talking more and more about missing out on what is going on in the concerts, because many times the stars are communicating with us. I was recently watching, kind of rewatching Nebworth with, what's his name? Robbie Williams.
Hmm.
And I have seen from that recording how much interaction, not just singing, was between Robbie and the audience. I would have missed that out unless there was captioning there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that was something I definitely missed out. Or a hearing loop or the direct sound coming to my ear, making sure that I can actually hear directly into my ear, because the distance between the sound and speakers, it's creating a huge barrier for me. So that was, quite a few people. One person was talking about one singer actually talking about her health issues, and she missed out the jokes. She missed out because there
Yeah.
was no captioning there. But I
Yeah.
think, but I do think the artists do realize that, and that's why we are making those efforts. And I'm very pleased to see on YouTube, for example, more and more videos from the artists already carry open subtitling, because they are making sure the lyrics are there so we can follow. I mean, for me, it's actually very hard to try to follow the lyrics if I miss the beat with something. And when where is he or she with the lyrics? It's really difficult.
Yeah.
So even having lyrics behind, no caption, just hearing lyrics behind in those, wonderful video effects they are creating. Just put somewhere nice, creative videos with lyrics, and I am following you up, and I can sing with you.
Yeah, it's so simple, isn't it? That's not a difficult adjustment to make. Thank you for joining the Sunflower Conversations podcast. Remember to hit subscribe. We had a couple of questions come in from a webinar that you were very kind to join and to present at. And some of the questions we didn't get a chance to get to. So I thought it would be quite good to just maybe quickly run through them now. I'm just going to read it from one of the participants who said that they have hearing loss and that most people think that she hears silence or that she's turned down the volume, but she has actually lost all high-pitched sound. So she only hears some things, and some things are like mumbled sounds. And she talks about a ITV drama in the UK called Code of Silence, which is fairly new, which tries to show what the character played by Rose Ellis actually hears. So if anybody's listening and hasn't had an opportunity to watch that, check that out. Somebody was asking, how long does the cochlear implant last? Does it have a lifespan, or does it does it need to be replaced after a certain time? So I don't know if you could just give an answer to that.
That's the one operation, and I don't need any more. But if someone is a child receiving cochlear implant, young child, then for sure they most likely will have another operation throughout their lifetime. But I have met people who received implants when they first came out. One of the first, so 40 years, going strong, just changing the processors of the devices which look like hearing aids, except a little bit different. And they are working with our implants, and yeah, they keep going. So normally, I think, depending on the manufacturer warranty, but I think it's around 15 years, which I'm still under warranty. But there are also sometimes situations, after all, it is electronic, but we just break down much earlier even. So it can happen as well.
Okay. And then just a couple more questions because we are coming to the end.
And should I mention that Code of Silence situation?
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, I've watched it. I actually enjoyed it very much. And I have been doing a bit of forensic lip reading, but for the Polish language in UK. Hearing aids, when people have a hearing aids, in majority experiencing hearing loss, most of the time, including in induced hearing loss, such as losing some hearing because I've been listening to a very loud, wonderful concerts and, blasting out the music into my ears when I am going on the underground in London to just to hear only music and not the noise. Well, I actually am injuring myself. And the first thing that happens when somebody is losing their hearing due to unsafe listening is to lose the high frequencies. That's the first that goes normally. So that's why you get later the mumbling only voices. And hearing aids, they can help with that. But sometimes people still find that the high-pitched voice still is lost for them. On top of that, we have a tinnitus. And tinnitus is just a noise all the time going on in our ears or brain, in fact. And it's non-stop. It depends on the intensity of it. It can be really I can't say that.
Debilitating.
Yes, thank you. Well, English is my second language.
Oh, I think you're phenomenal. This might seem like a silly question, but when you're asleep and you're dreaming, is the tinnitus in your dream?
No.
No.
lucky.
You get a reprieve.
Somehow I managed to get tired because we get all tired of listening fatigue and concentration fatigue. But usually when I hit the pillow, I go pretty quick to sleep.
Yeah,
And no, I have no dream of tinnitus at all. It doesn't exist well.
good. So what are your thoughts? Because we've spoken a lot about basically being the perception of you and others is that it's an invisible disability, isn't it, basically? And so people are not aware of what your hearing levels are like, whether you can hear anything at all or if you're started to decline. So thinking about tools for that, what do you think about the sunflower?
Well, sunflower is actually a great tool, and the people I have introduced it to in European countries have also been finding it useful. And I know it started from the United Kingdom. I have many times mentioned in different conferences I participated in that we are using sunflower and how it can be useful. One of the biggest thing it can help with, obviously, people, especially people with hearing loss, do experience a highlighted stigma. We don't want sometimes to even kind of come out and say, I do have a hearing loss. They just prefer sometimes to pretend and just fly by the seat of their pants and maybe everything will be fine.
Yeah,
But when they get caught, that's where the embarrassment happens. So it takes the confidence and learning that it's better to be open and to say, look, I have a hearing loss. And when they know what is happening, they understand why my reaction is this way and not the other way, because there is clearly a background to it. And in this case, a lot of people have heightened anxiety, misunderstanding, mishearing, and sometimes thinking somebody is nearly attacking them verbally when they're not. And having that kind of, signal helps for the staff to understand this person has a hidden disability. And many times our, issues are kind of similar to neurodivergent group as well. So we some kind of overlap in our reactions and things like that. Not hearing the phone, not listening to the phone. If somebody is offering me the phone, or I call and speak on that, I will just say, no, you speak for me. Why? I have a hearing loss. I prefer if you do make that call, for emergency, for example, in the airport for me. So, all those different things, it definitely helps. And it helps because as frequent traveler across the world for many years now, since I have a sunflower, I feel more confident. I feel more easy to approach to staff and say, I need some support or I need something or I need to ask question. They are just much more aware, especially in the places where sunflower is active, if I can say it that way.
hmm
And this year in Vienna, my friend actually discovered why she should be wearing her sunflower too, both of us with hearing loss. We were flying. I can't remember where we were flying together. And since I was the one wearing it, she got invited to the VIP screening instead of a normal long queue of people going through the screening at the airport. And she said, right, now I need to start wearing it. So it is in a way a psychologically an interesting way of helping people to be confident themselves,
Yeah,
to actually say, yes, I have a hearing loss. And so what? It's just a condition I'm dealing with.
yes, yeah,
But they become more comfortable to say it openly.
yes. So you use it for when you're flying, do you?
Mostly for the flights and just to going through the very busy hubs. So the biggest help for me normally it is actually outside of the UK, because that's where I find really useful, surprisingly enough. But also, it's just airports are such a chaotic places and
Mm,
they're pretty inaccessible. People are announcing things, changing some planes and things like that. So that helps a lot. That helps a lot. But I do know some of my colleagues in United Kingdom as well in the association I am connected with, which is a national association of different people, are also using in different social associations, social situations here.
So, because it's giving that indicator to people, okay, before you get frustrated or don't leave, there's something here that you can't see. So take your time with me and judge.
Yeah, exactly.
So finally, do you have any tips for communicating with individuals who are hard of hearing?
Well, I have tips for both. For the people with hearing loss, just open up and say it. Yes, I have been through all of those phases, including pretending that everything is fine and I am hearing when I am not. Of course I did. I'm not saint here. And for many years, I even didn't see myself as a person with disability because I saw mobility issues as the disability rather than myself, and realized that actually, we all have a different barriers, just different things. So that's number one, be open and tell people what works for you. What works for me may not work for another person. So it's always, there is a general usually tip, but in general, it's for me to tell someone else what works for me, what I need. And for the people who are interacting with people like me, one of the main things is find a quiet place to talk.
Okay.
That's number one. And of course, well lit, because when it is dark, forget, I cannot lip read you anymore. So obviously, that I cannot do. And it's captioning and hearing loops. So usually I talk, but to be fully accessible as fully accessible as possible in social events, conferences, etc. If you make sure that there is captioning, there is sign language, and even better, if you choose the conference place, which has hearing loops already installed, or any other assistive listening system is in place, then you are pretty good.
Or like my mum, for example, her hearing is really bad. She really can't hear very well at all. She's got hearing aids. She doesn't very often put them in. And sometimes when so I start shouting, not shouting at her, but I'll say something. She hasn't heard it. So I'll repeat it back, but like loud. And she says to me, I don't need you to shout at me. I just need you to enunciate much more clearly when you're talking to me.
Yeah, and that is basically 3 R's. Repeat, rephrase.
Okay. Repeat,
So
repeat.
sometimes when you say the same thing, but in a different way, my brain might actually pick up easier. And, and sometimes it's just write quickly a note and just write a note and say this, or point at something. So we know that you're pointing at this, like the counter. I just want that popcorn. Oh yeah, okay, that's fine. So it's all about visual kind of support for ourselves to make sure that we actually just try to help each other in this communication conundrum. But the biggest one is where I sometimes seen it few times in very uncomfortable situation where somebody is repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating in the same tone, in the same way. Don't shout, please, because shouting distorts your lips, so we cannot lip read anymore that well. But it's just this continued repeat, and it's becoming hostile almost for the person receiving this constant repeat, and still not getting what you're saying. So rephrasing when repeat didn't help, maximum after 2 repeats is something what helps to resolve the situation, because otherwise it's like microaggression almost.
That's really helpful advice, because what can then lead on from that is that individual withdraws, and therefore they are excluded and they're not included. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. So I love that advice. Thank you. And thank you so much for your time, Lydia.
Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to have that discussion. I absolutely enjoyed it. It brought me back to some places where I was, or things, times, which I definitely wanted to forget. But I also realized that unless we talk about it and unless we speak about it openly, we're not going to change the world. So we need to be sharing our experiences to make sure that we leave a better place for everyone.
Thank you, and thank you for going with me and getting into it and sharing your personal experiences, because I'm sure it's very, very difficult. So I'm incredibly grateful.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me as well. And if anything, what we have discussed today is of any help to anyone, then we have achieved our goal, making the world a little bit more friendly and inclusive for people with hearing loss.
If you are concerned about any of the subjects discussed in the podcast, please follow up and seek support from your healthcare practitioner. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it, leave a rating and review to help raise awareness of non-visible disabilities and the Hidden Disability Sunflower. You can also follow and subscribe to the Sunflower Conversations podcast.
If you'd like to share your sunflower story or conversation, please email conversations@hiddendisabilitiesstore.com. Find out more about us or listen to this recording again by checking out our insights page at hiddendisabilitiesstore.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Please help, have patience, and show kindness to others, and join us again soon. Making the invisible visible with the Hidden Disability Sunflower.